Ninsima Chibuka. So we obviously have some very esteemed guests on here, but this is meant to be a fireside chat. We all want to get into your lives, your daily tiny moments on how you've built this big, magnificent picture and how you've been able to sustain your health through all of it. So Project Girls for Girls, one of the first, if anybody goes through the G4G training, one of the first sessions you attend is on courageous leadership. Now, from your bios, I think it's obvious to anybody listening that you are courageous leaders. And one of the themes that is mentioned in there is finding your purpose and your mission. So I'm curious to hear from you how your spiritual health has fueled you finding your purpose and your mission and staying on your purpose and mission. Because in the functional medicine model, like I might have alluded to earlier, it's a holistic 360 view of health, where your spiritual health, emotional health, and mental health are at the center. And then the other pillars are your movement, your sleep, your nutrition, your stress management, and supportive relationships, which we'll get into later. But for now, if you could please talk to us about how your spiritual health has fueled your purpose and your mission. And we'll start with you, Diana.
Thank you, Olivia. Good afternoon to those on the African continent. And I believe good morning to you, Olivia, and those in the West. I'm just excited that we are finally here today talking about health. And talking about the fact that health is not just one, facet, as you've put it, the spiritual matters as well, the emotional matters. So when you talk about, finding purpose, I must, I was a young lawyer and I really used to put in the hours. I loved what I did. You've spoken about your career. I could see the path. I was getting the bonuses, but I just felt there was no balance when it came to the joy, in what I was doing and how it fitted into everything. And I was fortunate enough to meet a coach in one of the organizations where I had gone for a secondment, and he asked me to paint a picture, and that remains some of the most profound advice I have ever received. And, when it came to painting the picture, they're the things that you think you want, but then actually what drives them? Why do you want certain images in your life? Now, because I'm a lifelong learner, I love learning, and I'm always reading a book, always listening to a podcast or something. I found that at the center, the spiritual, the connection we have to God, if you're a believer, and then there's the underlying, how does that play out? The value system you hold stemming from, that spiritual connection. And as I began to question, some things that really stood out for me were the fact that family was important to me. And what did that look like? It meant being present. The other thing that stood out for me was the ability to give back and influence positively, to contribute positively to people's lives. I wanted that to be something daily I was living. And so as we talk about it, G4G, we connect the dots slowly. For a long time, I was involved with children's charities. For a long time, I was involved with NGO work. And for a long time, I was involved with talking to people. My office in the law firm used to be a space where people come, lay their burdens down, we pray together, and I release them. And I think that when the opportunity came to lead at Girls for Girls, I took it up because it connected with my value to be able to contribute, to be able to be a blessing, to give and positively impact people. When the opportunity came for BNI, again, I saw it as an opportunity to build a community where business owners could actually contribute to each other. So starting from, the underlying principles, my faith in God calls me to love others. What does that look like in a world where you can't exactly walk up to people and say, I love you? What it meant and what it looks like for me is helping people grow, helping people on their journey, wherever they are, and just walking with them a little and hoping that as we walk, as we journey, they grow. So really it's that question. For me, it was a question I asked my coach, how do I create a balance, and the leaning into painting a picture of the life you want to lead, and understanding that that picture could only lie on the foundation of my values and my connection to God. And then as I began to connect the dots, saying yes to the opportunities, which led me to love people, to help people, and following that with my whole heart. Thank you, Olivia.
Thank you. Thank you, Dana, for sharing that. So starting from the foundation, and for you, that foundation was your love for God and spreading that love out to others, but also having it rooted in your values, because loving other people could be draining. But for you, it was something that was rooted to your values. Thank you for sharing that. Honorable Sech Toliko, I would love to hear from you how your spiritual health has guided you in your evolving purpose and mission.
Yes. Thank you, Olivia. First of all, as you heard in my introduction, I'm a farmer's daughter. And I'm the third daughter, after which 2 more daughters were born. So if you have got 5 daughters and I'm the one in the middle, that does not make me anything special. So I'm one of those children who used to not have an answer when I would be asked, what do you want to be when you grow up? Because really, at that time, our information was very limited. My father had been a policeman before retiring into farming. My mother had been a teacher. So what we knew was about the police, the teachers, and the nurses, because now and then we would see the nurses. But for a reason I don't know, well, I would love to see the clean nurses and all that. It never occurred to me that I could become a nurse for a reason which has nothing to do with nursing. I did not want to wear the cap which the nurses wear. So at least I knew what I didn't want to do, but I didn't know what I was going to do. So when we were growing up, of course, we would be baptized. We would be then confirmed when you are a little bit older. And that is how our spiritual health was being nurtured by our parents. But if you are a young parent and you are a mother of 5 before you turn 40, you are a mother of 10 before you turn 50. That is a lot of work. So by the time you have fed physical feeding, by the time you have done the real nurturing where some sticks sometimes have to be brought in and whatever, there is very little time left for spiritual development. But this former policeman and his former teacher wife had a way around this. There were times where you couldn't get away from prayer. For example, there was no way you are going to eat without praying. And we always had to pray in the morning. After that, what you did in between was up to you. So growing up, I was taken to missionary schools where religion, Christianity was center. Was going to Iganga Junior School and then going to Gaza High School, all of them were Christian schools. Those made sure that the ink of spirituality is actually cast and dried properly, which I really am very grateful for. Because, real life is tough. We all need some anchor, to be sure that if something happens, I drop my anchor. So I'm really happy that I was anchored into Jesus. And given my past, I don't think I would be where I am if it was not for Jesus. I'll just give you an example. After graduation, I immediately got a job with Uganda Development Bank. At that time, those were Amin days. At that time, nearly every good thing went to Muslims. So I get this job with Uganda Development Bank, which was headed by a Muslim. A number of employees there were Muslims and men. So this woman arrives, and I have to get what these people get, some of which I did get. But While I worked for Uganda Development Bank for 13 years, I got one promotion in 13 years. So whenever I say that, people will ask, why didn't you resign? Why didn't you complain? Why didn't you? You know, when you are in a certain situation, especially if you read your Bible properly, God is preparing you for something else. Apparently, God wanted me to be in this bank so that he uses that time to prepare me for politics. Because when you are in the bank, you are really among the elite. You understand things about money. But because I was an agriculture banking officer, I was also dealing with the ordinary people. There is no better way to learn about ordinary people than becoming a politician. So if you start off by banking, seeing them and talking to them, because you know when you are their banker and you are really nice to them, they'll tell you all the details, all the truth, no lies or whatever. And in any case, you go and visit and see. So by the time I became Minister of Agriculture, I had a rough idea what type of people I'm going to deal with. Now, going back to my lack of promotion, if I had been promoted, I would have been moved away from the ordinary people. That is one. And two, maybe until now, I would be craving to remain in the bank. So when you read your Bible, like our mother used to read it to us, and our school used to make sure that we understand what was happening where. When you think about people like Joseph, I'm definitely sure if God had asked Joseph about skipping jail and maybe not being thrown in the ditch, he would have said, if that is the route to being prime minister, forget it, keep your prime ministership. So maybe even for me, if God had asked me, in order for you to become Minister of Agriculture, you are going to work in Uganda Development Bank for 13 years and there will be no promotion, I would have said, is there an alternative? So back to being rooted in one's Christianity. Even if I was not being promoted and so on and so forth, I was able to get married in the church, of course, have my children, take them to church, and teach them about the good life of being a Christian and being anchored into Christianity. Once again, that Christianity comes in very handy when I join politics, because those of you who are in Uganda are hearing all sorts of stories about members of parliament doing this and doing the other. During that time when I was minister, I remember quite a few times people would bring all sorts of silly fetishes into my office. At one time, some woman was shaking hands with me and she had a fetish in her hand. I just opened my hand like this and she didn't know what to do with it. Then another one, this was a man, he was not working. I called him to my office and I told him, you either work or I'll fire you. So he went and brought a fetish, which he dropped in my office. Then as soon as he got out, a certain woman member of staff comes in and says, oh, so-and-so has dropped something. So she picks it up. I call the messenger. He takes it into the wastebasket basket and throws it away. Then another time, all sorts of funny things were found on Monday in my office. And I remember one time my secretary asked, maybe we should bring somebody to pray in this office. And I'm like, but I pray every day. I'm on a hotline with God, you know? So if I had not been anchored properly, maybe I would have taken off for the next witch doctor nearby, or maybe I would have just abandoned the office and said, yeah, this is too tough, I did not sign up for this. But when you are properly anchored, in fact, when your enemies try this one and doesn't work, try the other one and doesn't work, they normally give up. And honestly, in life, there is no better way to live other than to win a battle without fighting it. Over to you, Olivia.
Thank you. Thank you so much for those stories. You mentioned a word over and over, being anchored, being anchored. Spirituality is that anchor. And like I mentioned in the motto, it falls right at the center of our health and well-being. So in this journey of life and leadership, there's no other way about building a meaningful life that you can enjoy and navigating fetishes and all kinds of craziness other than to be anchored. And Diana called it a foundation. So those two are definitely key to our well-being and to our health. So in the G4G, you also, as you were mentioning, the way you navigated your banking career without being promoted, you mentioned it was preparation for the next step. So it was almost like you were investing in your gathering years, as G4G calls it, without even knowing you were investing in your gathering years. And when we're thinking about our health, investing in our health in our gathering years, in our earlier years, we normally, sometimes there are healthy habits that you will feel an immediate impact on. For example, if you have a good night rest of sleep, you might notice you're having fewer headaches. But usually the impact of healthy habits compounds over time. So in the earlier parts of our life, we are investing in our gathering years of health so we can live a healthy life the older we get. So, Honorable Sechoko, if you could share the cumulative impact you've experienced after years of consistency in small, healthy habits and how that is helping you continue to lead even now.
The first example that comes to mind is actually recent and current. You know, when I retired, if any of you is listening in from Nakawa side of Kampala, you remember during the early 2011, 12, 13, 14, water was a problem. So because water was a problem, it would come, but it was so little, so it would not go into our hot water tank so that you can have a good shower. So for like 3 years, we had to put water, to heat water, put it in a basin and have a bath. And for me, there is no way I can have a bath, especially if you are putting it in the big bath, you have the basin in the big bath. There's no way I can have a bath without kneeling. So for 3 years, I would kneel in the morning in order to bathe, then I would kneel in the evening. Now, after 3 years, the water was sorted, the shower was working. But then I discovered that my knees were so nimble, basically because I kneel. And when I would be kneeling, I wouldn't even think about it because, you know, when you're having a nice warm bath, who cares if you are kneeling or standing up? But I discovered that my knees were actually benefiting. So the long and short of it all is that 10 years later, even this morning, I put my water in the bath, in the basin. I kneel in the bath and I soap myself all over. I scrub myself. Then after that, I go into the shower. So I continue to kneel because I don't even think about it. It now comes automatically. And I decided to continue practicing it because many of my friends were complaining about their knees. So I started wondering, what am I doing which is different to make it easier for me to keep kneeling? You know, like when you go to the village, all sorts of functions require kneeling. Sometimes when you are in church and whatever, you have to kneel. For me, I have no problem. So for that, I thank Ntinda, which had no water and helped me develop this habit. Then another habit which I developed, once again because of circumstances, is that just before I retired, I was working in China. And in China, the whole continent of China eats its dinner at 6 o'clock. In China, they have got only one time zone. So when it is 6 o'clock, it is 6 o'clock. So it is dinner time. And once you work there, maybe for a year or two, you just get used to eating at 6 o'clock. So when, for example, in China, if you want to go to a restaurant at 8 o'clock and eat, they're like, are you eating breakfast or what? So in that process, because I was in China for 5 years, by the time I came back here, I had caught the habit of eating at 6 o'clock. I eat my dinner at latest 6 o'clock, then I have my breakfast after 8 o'clock. So by the time it became a fashion for people to talk about intermittent fasting, I had already picked the habit from China. And for that, I really am grateful to the Chinese because it works wonders. If you are here and you are listening, and you say if you eat at 6 o'clock, you feel hungry at night, I will tell you where the hunger is. The hunger is in your head, not in your stomach. If you go to bed not thinking about food, because you are honestly just going to sleep, why do you need food in your stomach? Just getting the stomach tired for nothing. So I really am grateful to the Chinese, and I like my life because when I wake up in the morning, I'm really and thoroughly hungry and ready for my breakfast. And that is why it is called breakfast, breaking the fast. Over to you, Olivia.
Thank you. Thank you. I think for all of us, it is goals to have nimble knees way into our 70s. But I especially like the fact that these were small habits that were born out of the life that you were living at the time. You found a way to not overhaul your life, but add these healthy habits into the life you were already, the circumstances you were already living at the time. And you continued, they became, because they were part of your normal life, everyday life, your daily life, they became daily habits that are now sustaining you, sustaining your needs way into the future. So thank you for sharing that. What about you, Diana? I'll switch the question to relationships, because you mentioned at the top of the hour, we mentioned at the top of the hour, you're leading two organizations that are pretty much two communities of people. So definitely building supportive community. You're also in your bio, a connector is something that you are intentional about and something that you are good at. In G4G terms, we call it building your village. And in functional medicine, it's one of the pillars of health, that's supportive community. We're meant to be relational, and the healthier those supportive communities we have are, the better our well-being. So if you could share with us a little bit of your approach into building healthy communities, while also cultivating a small, trusted circle for yourself and the impact that that has on your health.
Thank you, Olivia. So I think that for me, the first thing is that I grew up in a big home. I remember one time my neighbors were telling me, but actually, how many people live in your home? You know, because it was always bursting at the seams with family and relatives. So the dynamics of living in big communities, I think, came early. And then, of course, I have, we're 10 siblings, and my immediate sisters were 5 girls. So those dynamics, I think, really are what shaped me when it comes to managing and building relationships, because there's politics, but there's also love, and there's honesty, and and then my parents' values, really. My dad, who passed away in 2012, my mom is still alive. They both believe in candor, speak your truth. You must be able to speak your truth. They also believe in integrity, and for integrity, for my mom, was simply no lies. Don't lie. Don't perpetuate lies. Don't bring lies to and feed them and take them further. So when time came and I said yes to building these communities, I think for me at the core, because I have a very, very strong family group, which at the same time is extended. With those 4 sisters, they have best friends who are now sisters. So I see it really as an extension, especially Girls for Girls. When we talk about the Sisters Keeper, I have had sisters, I have gone for job interviews, and after I get a call from my sister, you were in the job interview, my friend was one of the panelists, this is what had worked, this is what didn't work, and so I have had a whole community of people who look out for me, even when they just because they know I'm related to one of my siblings, one of my many siblings, or that we come from the same family space. So when I came out to build these communities, really what I was looking at is for just extending, and I keep talking about love, but my mother always talks about love. She always says, I love you. She always tells people I love them. And it's simple in the sense that I wish you the best. I care for you. And it's in the present tense. Today, how can I care for you today? What that means for her is if she sees a pregnant woman on the road, she'll stop and give her a lift. If she sees a hungry person, she'll stop and feed them and then move on. She won't carry the burden everywhere. But in that moment, what can she do? So when I thought about especially Girls for Girls, I had been part of the very first group at a school in Bugonga, in Tebe. I had seen that transformation. We went to Namagunga, I saw that transformation. And I said to myself, more people need to learn the truth that, one, they can actually be a leader, but also they can be surrounded, because Girls for Girls really is trying to create a village, a global village, a village in your community where you can be plugged in and have a supportive environment. Because of my personal experience, I knew it was possible. So I really just saw it as expanding it slowly into the different groups. And the way Girls for Girls grew in Uganda was organic. So Olivia, you know, I called people from my old school. We called people from, I remember the first law cohort was lawyer friends, very organic. So we brought in people who we knew, and they brought in people who they knew. So up to today, I believe that the community in Girls for Girls is really an extension of, of the small relationships that build up. So that's why I feel that it's a safe space for me. Your sisters bring sisters, and because we have the same heart, then it's a safe space. For BNI, and I'll talk about how I keep my small circle. For BNI, my mother has been in business for many years, and I have seen how her business transformed her community, her home, my father's village, her village, by allowing people to be educated and find employment. So I really believe in the power of small business. So when BNI came along, I saw it as an opportunity to take what I had seen in my mom's small shop and support others. And again, because of the support we have received as a family and as friends, I knew that if all people need sometimes is a community to build around to support them. So my home experience really is the foundation, is the source of my belief. And it's why my vision is I'm so confident in the vision that people can build each other, that community can be born out of a small business and can be supported to grow into a big contributor, into a big business and change even the economy. Now, how do I keep my circle small and look after the relationships? I learned, first of all, I have a very clear priority list. My family is important to me. That means my mom, sisters, siblings, my husband, and my children. My office team, the office I work with, the team, they know that if my children are not well, if my children need me, if my mother needs me, I'm out. I don't, there's anyone who's near me knows I don't negotiate that. So I know who's important. And one test I always say is who will be there when I die? Sometimes you have the whole world as your friend, but when you die, who will actually say, I'm going to cancel my work trip, I'm going to come back from America, I'm going to, be there on the grave? And really, it's a handful. For most of us, it's a handful because, even it's really a handful. And so I know those names and I make sure I'm there. What are the practical things I do? The first thing is when I'm starting the year, and I learned this from John Maxwell, I put the big dates in my calendar first, family. I put the birthdays of my immediate family. I will not travel on those dates, and I will plan for those dates. I will be like, what are we doing? Where are we going? I will make sure I buy their gifts early. It's very, very intentional about that. The other thing is school holidays for the kids, because when those break, I know that so that school break, I know when it's happening. I don't travel in those dates. I'm able to block it and tell people, sorry, I'm not available. Then I put in the travel dates, international travel dates, which I don't have any control over. And then I begin to let my family know, oh, I'm aware of these dates, this is what my calendar looks like. Then I put in, business commitments. Okay, I have to be in these meetings, ABCD. And then I put in social commitments. So if you invite me for your wedding and the wedding is falling on my son's birthday, I want to be able to make it, if already he had told me I need ABCD. So it becomes very easy to live my life because it's easy to say no. I think to prioritize the relationships I prioritize, I must say no to a lot. And so my no is very easy because I know what my big rocks are. I've told you, for me, the test is simple. Who will be by my graveside when I die? Who will come? Who mandatory, must be there? and I make sure those relationships are secure. I also have a small tight corner of sisters. I call them sisters from my old school. And I've worked with them. I was their matron. They were my mate. They were, in my bridal, space. I've worked with them, and I tell them all the time. I tell them, you're my, critical mass. You're my, and we talk. And I'm very intentional about those relationships and about checking in on them. And then, for me, it's really family, and then a few core friends who know that they are in my, inner circle. And I tell them that many times I expect of you, if anything happens to me, come in, help me. And they've stood for me. They've stood surety for me when I'm taking business loans. They've proved that they can be there, that they tested. So for me, the bigger community, it's about making those small connections that have meaning. And because they have all grown organically, I feel that they feed into, into my, personal, space. I can be safe in G4G, I can be safe in BNI. But then for the inner circle, it's understanding my big rocks and making sure time. This is another test I learned from somewhere else, to ask yourself, if someone is important to you, how much money have you spent on them in the last 6 months? And how much time have you given to them in the last 6 months? Time and money, that's my test also.
Thank you. Thank you. Lots of powerful lessons in there, Diana. Again, the theme that I heard from you as you shared that was your values, your values, your values, your values. So you are able to navigate these big spaces because they're rooted in the values that you learned growing up at home. And that's how it feels natural and it fuels you, and you're not getting burnt out and super stressed doing it because it's rooted in your values. And then with your relationships, again, you're prioritizing, you're setting boundaries, you're saying no, but that's also rooted back in terms of your values. And the key test you shared with us in how to assess whether you're living in line with your values. Values are basically saying this is important to me. So if you're saying this is important to me, how much money are you spending on it and how much time are you spending on it? So thank you for sharing those lessons with us. And I also love, again, the recurring theme of small beginnings, you started small and then organically these things grew. So thank you for sharing those with us. Turning it over to Honorable Sech-Toleko, still on the theme of supportive relationships. If you could share with us your approach to that in terms of being intentional about your relationships and how that has served your health over the years.
Okay. Since I've lived quite a number of years, I'll just concentrate on where the juice is. I think the most difficult time as far as relationships are concerned was when I was a politician, because I was a politician for 9 years and my children were still young. I had a young family. My husband was working. So the first thing I didn't think about it. I think it just happened. I looked at the situation and saw there was no other way. I fell in love with my husband again. I want to tell everybody who is planning to take on a big job, if you are married, first fall back in love with that boy who became your husband again, basically because you are going to need him. You need a social network. We always talk about those social networks, but you need somebody where you know that whatever happens, the net will not let you down. He's always there for you. And you trust him absolutely. You tell him something just because you want to share, and he knows it is not supposed to leave the house, and it won't leave the house. That is one. Then two, if you are lucky and you still have your parents. Honestly, in life, it is very difficult to find anybody who will love you more than your parents. So this is your first, it is like the beginning of the social network, the center. So if you have your parents, love them back, bring them on board as much as you can. Because for me, this is what used to happen. As Minister of Agriculture, I used to travel a lot, both in Uganda and outside. But then my husband had to work. So whenever I would be traveling, I would go home, pick up my mother, of course, sometimes leave my father with his other dependents and bring her to look after my children. This, of course, was necessary because I needed somebody to be there with my young children. But eventually, now that they are older, I can see that there are quite a number of things they were able to learn from my mother, which I could not have passed on to them. I remember one time when I was traveling, one of my children fell sick. They took her to hospital and they gave her medicine which she was allergic to. And if you have ever seen anybody who is having a bad allergic reaction, it was bad. So fortunately, the doctor was called, came in, sorted it. But what this child remembers is my mother was hovering over her bed saying, Satan, get her from my child. God, who told you to come here? This is my child. Whatever you do, this is Jesus' child. This happened when she was, I think, in P1. Until now, she remembers that. You can imagine if my parents were slightly different belief, that maybe because I'm minister, they have bewitched my child and all that and all that. So, the social network. When we are growing up, normally the village will identify you with something. For example, for me, I was called Gayazagal for a long time, and then when I became minister, the whole village knew that I was minister. So when I would go to the village, I would just randomly stop to say hello. Because for them, they all knew my name, but I didn't know them. So I would stop to say hello. I would actually take newspapers to the youth because they gather in the trading centers. So I'd take newspapers and just leave them there. You know what happened? Because first time when I became minister, I was appointed. But then after that, I had to stand for elections. Now, when I went to stand for elections, the whole village, starting with LC1, the whole village declared that nobody is going to stand against me. If you want to stand for politics in the position she is, find another constituency. But for us, we are done. So all the time, when I was member of parliament, minister, whatever, which is 9 years, minus the years when I was just appointed, I did not have to pay anybody to do my campaigning. In quite a number of cases, I would arrive, let's say I go to a church, then the people from there will come out and say, what are you doing here? We already have the votes. Who else can we vote for? So, in other words, by preparing your bed while you are somewhere else, because even before I was appointed to become minister, I used to work with an organization called the Friendly Hands. The Friendly Hands was based in Mayuge, but then I would go through Jinja. So now and then, I would stop, just say hello, and I would tell these people I'm going to Mayuge. So when I went to my constituency, which is just after Jinja, and told them I wanted to stop to stand, they knew what I had been doing in Mayuge, so they already knew that I have a track record. Meaning, if you are going to benefit from your social networks, you do not have to wake up like 2-3 years before you stand for parliament and start working on them. The voters, the public is not deaf, is not blind. They see. In other words, from day one, start preparing. You know, many of you, I'm definitely sure, have read that book, Who Has Moved My Cheese? If and when we talk about cheese, let's say when I was in the bank, there was plenty of cheese there. I could have just been comfortable, worked very hard to become a senior in the bank and all that, and I would be eating maybe the cheapest type of cheese. Then as time goes on, I built my social network, and actually it is in the process of building my social network that I actually developed my political network. Well, that is how it starts. So when I became minister, of course, the cheese became bigger. I was down distributing the cheese. I could have been happy to give who I want to give and not give who I don't want to give. Once again, killing my own social networks. One of the things I tried, which I really found very unusual, is when I became minister. That was because I graduated 73. I became minister in 1986. But the girls who I had been with in the same class, none of them was heading a district. Most of them were deputy agriculture officer, deputy. These girls were even more brilliant than these men. I don't have anything against the men, but we have to be fair. So within about 3-4 years, nearly everybody had found some kind of movement. I did not fire the men. There were so many places to move to, so they made space, and the girls also came up. Once again, that is building one's social network. Basically, because now that I'm retired, some of these women are also, of course, retired. But it is such a joy when I go around the country doing my other work, which I do now, and nearly every district, I have a sister. You know, when Chino Achebe wrote and said, when you invite your brothers to a meal, it is not because they don't have food. For me, when I go to these districts and look up my sisters, it is not because I don't have money for a hotel. In fact, I don't stay with them, I stay in the hotel. But it is such a joy. You come back feeling so fulfilled. So if you are still in the business of giving, these people have filled your cup and you have got plenty to share. The one thing, of course, which continues happening as right from the word go and whatever, is people die. Yeah, and people die, people leave, people move on, people change. Once again, when and if you are growing your social network, it is important to be prepared for these eventualities, but most importantly, that people changing. Because, for example, when and if I choose to become a politician, there are people who just don't want to associate with politicians. You accept it. And what is interesting, when I stopped being a politician, they're like, okay, now we can talk. And I'm like, okay, on your terms. After all, it is not like you're asking me to move in with you, but life goes on. The angle of the Victoria you want is not the politician one, but now the retiree is here and ready to be with you. Now, I've told everybody these days that if you are not my friend and you are over 70 years of age, it is too late for us to be friends. I don't have the time to invest in that type of friendship. My time which is left on earth, I'm going to befriend young people, basically because they have got ambitions which I can support and jubilate with them when they succeed. I have nothing against older people, but I love young people. But when I spend a day with them, by the end of the day, I feel as young as they are. That is until I look in the mirror and see my gray hairs. Over to you, Olivia.
Thank you. Thank you. And if you could just add a little bit about how those supportive relationships have fueled your health, how they've helped you stay healthy, because you have relationships that you had for years.
Yeah. First of all, I will start with my mother. Because my mother was there to be with my children, I was mentally settled, whatever meeting I had gone to, because I didn't have to worry about that. So for that one, I'm eternally grateful. Now, for other relationships, like I'll start with my mother's distant cousin, but who was also from the same village. Oh, this woman used to love us. Every holiday, she would come and say, oh, welcome back for the holidays. When are you coming back? Tell me 2 days before so that I prepare the groundnuts you will take. We would, we loved her to bits. So recently when she died, all of us had to go and attend the funeral, basically because we really, she loved us when I think at that time we didn't even know what love was, but for her, she loved us. Then two, for the girls, I'll call them girls even if they are over 70, for the girls who I went to school with, honestly, they turned into sisters. It is not until somebody really asks and says, but you are from Jinja and this person is from Bushenyi, how come you are sisters? The joke until now is, you see, my father was a policeman and he worked all over Uganda, so you never know because it has nothing to do with them. But there is nothing better than having somebody who has known you for some time, understands you, liked you when you are really a nobody, and still likes you. Somebody where you can pick up the phone and call and they don't say, I'm in a hurry, what do you want today? No. Sometimes they know all you want is a chat. And maybe you are going to chat for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, and after that, you sleep happily after that. There is nothing better than really sleeping well. If anybody here is listening and you are not sleeping well, my advice to you is leave everything else, sort out your sleep. Because it is such a joy waking up from sleep, or you go to bed at 10 and you wake up at 7 and you're like, oh, 8 hours later, I have been sleeping. So finally, about relationships and friends. When you have young friends And because like now I'm preparing to go to Germany for a wedding of a young friend. You know, that joy rubs on to you. And when you are invited, because this young man who is about 30 years invited me in my own right. It is not like his parents invited me. He's my friend, and I'm going there to be with him. That joy rubs on to you, and mentally you are really okay. Then one last thing. One of the things which are, I was talking about sleep. When I mentioned what I've just said, sleeping well and all that, a friend who is actually a health coach recently told me that the reason I don't look as old as I should look is because I sleep well. But then she went on to say, this one you don't have to tell me, I'll tell you. You sleep well because your digestive system is okay. The moment your gut is happy, your mind is happy, you will sleep well. So if you are not sleeping well, maybe you check your gut. That's what she said. Now, during that conversation, I asked her how come she was, that is what she was saying. Then she told me that when she was young, she nearly died because of constipation. So she actually went to school and studied constipation. And went on to tell me that even when we are attending meetings, for her, when she looks at people, she can tell who is constipated and who is all right. So if you are having a problem, I want to let you know that you may think that we don't know, but some people know. Over to you, Olivia.
Thank you. Thank you for that visual of constipated leaders. But thank you for connecting the dots. Again, this session is about, functional medicine is about connecting the dots. All of the dimensions of our wellness are connected. So she talked about relationships and how supportive relationships not only help you be emotionally okay, but they also help you sleep well. And sleeping well helps your digestion, and your digestion is good for your gut health, and your gut health is connected to your brain health, which helps you be a better leader. So we're talking about all of these pieces and bringing them into harmony so that you are a better, a healthier person, and so that you can lead well. So thank you for those nuggets. We also have, on the topic of sleep, we have an event coming up in Uganda. We do have a sleep coach in Uganda, Caroline Businje, and she does have an event coming up next Wednesday on sleep. So for those of you in Uganda, be sure to check that out. But I'm hoping to now switch it over to, if you can share a time either when you did not take care of these foundational aspects of your health, your sleep, your nutrition, your movement, when you were not intentional about it, and it affected the way you showed up for either an important communication or an important negotiation. If you can share one example of that, or on the flip side, if you have a vivid example of when you were intentional about those things and you showed up as your best self and it resulted in a good outcome. I want to help people connect those dots between your health and your leadership. We'll start with Diana.
Oh, thank you, Olivia. I will share a very scary season in my life. I was launching BNI, the first group, in 2014, 2015, and I got pregnant along the way. And so in all this, what that involved is I would be out of my house by 5 a.m., go to meetings in the city, meet people, spend the whole day talking to people about joining Business Network International, and then come home very tired, and then also work at the law firm and come home really tired. So I launched this chapter, get it off the ground, have a baby, 1 month later, 3 weeks later, have the baby. And then I get sick. And what did I get sick of? Something called vertigo. And when basically what happened, I was doing my everyday walk after I gave birth. I said I would be intentional about walking. So as I was walking, I just get a bit of a spinning head, go home, rest it off. The next day, I literally cannot walk. The head was just spinning. And I started about 3 months of going to different doctors to explain what is wrong. And they kept saying, no, but this disease is for 60-year-old people. Why do you have it? the final doctor who I saw, a very old gentleman, he said, you had a flu and the flu affected your ears. And the ears, basically, you lost balance. The small part in your ear, which deals with balance, could not support. I mean, you just went haywire, and but you're going to get better. And it's not a condition you should be worried about. You know, it will pass. But what I know for sure is that it was the exhaustion, you know, carrying a baby, running, setting up BNI. It's not something many people know about because it was immediately after I launched the chapter and I just went quiet. Now, the powerful thing about community is that the team in BNI said, we'll take care of this. Don't worry. So I was actually able to rest. The scary thing for me was there was no pain, but I couldn't move. Imagine, even breastfeeding my baby, I couldn't. So my mom had to come in and stay at home. My family was supporting us. My husband was supporting. My father-in-law was supporting. But I was just stuck in this bubble where even opening my eyes caused intense nausea, intense disorientation. So I had a lot of thinking time. And the bottom line is that I respect the body. I respect, you know, when we are going to talk about physical health, you know, but this body we are in is first of all, not easily understood, and especially how everything connects, it's not easily understood. So because I have a respect for it, I listen to it. Because I listen to it, I learn a lot. I read a lot. I have a book here next to me, which I'm reading, you know, it's a new one, which I picked all in her head, How Science Has Treated Women. Because many times as women, we say, I don't feel okay. I don't feel okay. But explaining that to your doctor and actually getting help is another thing. And I know many people who had cancer, took long to be diagnosed because the doctor kept saying, you should be okay. I don't see anything. So what I learned in that season is that I must respect my body. And Warren Buffett talks about the fact that the body, you get, you know, if you have a car and you're given a car and you must use that car until you die, how would you use it? So I really treat my body like a physical asset that I must nurture. What does that look like? Where there's pain, I go to the doctor. It's so sad many women are living with pain and they don't see a doctor. When I have a condition like repeats, I go and see a doctor. I'm maybe fortunate that I can see a doctor. But if I don't feel well, I must seek help. Then I go to physiotherapy, I go for massage. I understand the body's aging. Then my simple hack is to walk, because I've seen my mom who's 78, all she does is walk daily. I walk an hour every evening in my compound. And I really recommend it. And the last hack is sleep. I read a book, Why We Sleep. It's so powerful. And the simple thing is you must have a regular sleep pattern. You must get into bed at the same time and try to aim to wake up at the same time. And people laugh when I tell them I'm in bed by 8 p.m. You know, because I have early starts, I've had to manage my family and my friends and everything. My phone goes off at 8. And it's okay, you know, I'm not solving the world's problems, so everything can wait until tomorrow. But what is cautious for me is that this body, I'm not going to get another one. I'm not going to walk into the shop and be like, give me some new, you know, lungs and give me a new liver. We've seen people struggle with getting kidney transplants and etc. So what I eat, how I move, you know, how I listen to the body is all very important. And I keep saying, thank you, God, for that early warning sign. Thank you that I had time to actually understand where it was from and deal with it. So my hacks for showing up as a leader: sleep well, enter bed at a specific time, and try to aim for the same time every night. And my other personal hack, don't laugh, is that there's a condition called hungry, where you're hungry and you get angry, and I get it. I know that about myself. If I don't eat like right, and I go into a space and my energy is going, I feel it. So I always have something on me, a biscuit, something that I can bite into to avoid me getting hungry into that mood where I'm showing up negatively and sort of losing it. So that's how I manage myself to show up as a leader. Thank you.
Thank you, Diana. And we are glad you are out of that scary season. It would have robbed us of all of the impact you have made on all of our lives. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's why if you're a mission-driven, purpose-driven person who has a calling to fulfill, it goes through your health. Because if you're not here, that calling isn't getting fulfilled. Thank you for sharing your hacks as well. Sleep well, don't be hungry, and have some snacks on hand. And what movement is definitely key. Honorable Sechtoliko, over to you. If you can share an experience with us where you were intentional about these foundational habits that either ended up in a positive result or where you were not intentional and it resulted in something bad. Honorable Sechtoliko.
Sorry, I had forgotten I was muted. Yeah, no, I was saying it actually happened to me. That is soon after I became full minister. I had been deputy minister for 2 years. So when I became full minister, I thought I knew it all and I could handle it. And of course, in Uganda, if you're Minister for Agriculture, oh my God, there is so much to do. So I guess I thought I would do all the work and finish it. So I worked and worked myself into what they called chronic fatigue. When you suffer from chronic fatigue, the body is so tired that it is no longer in it. You are no longer in charge. You put your hand here and it just falls the other way. You want to walk and you just cannot find the energy to stand up. So I go, during those days, Mulago was still a very good hospital. So I go to Mulago and they check everything. Until the physician said, you are suffering from chronic fatigue. So I'm going to put you on 2 weeks leave. I told this doctor, but I cannot. They said, you can't work. So you may as well listen to me. So I was sent on 2 weeks leave and given the prescription of, because now and then I have a beer. So this doctor said, I've got to eat plenty of roasted meat with plenty of salad and a beer once a day. So the one thing I remember about that is that when I went home, I told my husband asked me if the doctor had given me the first dose. Of course, I just laughed and said, no. He said, I rest and I eat those things. So I rested, and really 2 weeks later, I was as good as new. But since then, I learned to listen to my body like there is no tomorrow. Fortunately for me, when I'm hungry and I really need to eat, I feel the hunger in my hands. I know a few other people who get pain in their hands, and that is how we know that we are hungry. But for me, at the slightest touch of pain, I get out my chocolate, which even here is right here. I always have either a sweet or a chocolate in my bag. And sometimes it is so, these meetings we go to, you go there well knowing that you are starting at 7, you have breakfast, then you have lunch at 2. Until 4 o'clock, you haven't eaten. When you are at my age, it is not advisable to go with that hunger. In fact, I remember when I was still minister, one time we were touring with the president. And we left, I remember we were in Mubede, we left Mubede at about 7 o'clock, and until 7 p.m. we had not eaten anything. The food was there, but the president was still talking. We asked the minister who was in charge to tell the president that the food was ready, and he looked afraid. So I went, told the president, Mr. President, we are extremely hungry, and the food is ready. I remember the response of the president was, Victoria, we are trying to get you out of the kitchen, and you are refusing to leave the kitchen. I told him, not when I'm hungry. Let us first sort out the food. Actually, from that time onwards, he never let us spend a whole day without eating. But still, be that as it may, I survived the fatigue. And after that, once I feel that pain, which I've told you about, or even when I'm driving, I'm traveling, and I feel tired. Nothing cannot wait until tomorrow except my health. My health cannot wait until tomorrow. So I normally will normally stop in order to eat something. Then about exercises. For me, when I was in high school, when it came to choosing an elective subject to study, I chose to study domestic science, which is sometimes called the home management or home economics, whatever you want to call it. And most of us who studied that enjoy cooking, enjoy managing the home. So one of the things I enjoy most is making my breakfast. Why? I think it stems from lack of trust in other people, because these wonderful assistants we get from the villages and we put in the kitchen, you tell her, don't burn the onions. I mean, you cannot be in the kitchen all the time to see that the onions are not burnt. Don't use this cooking oil for this. You are not there to see. So every morning I wake up and I go to the kitchen and I prepare breakfast for everybody, including my assistant. When the two, because they were down in the garden and down in the kitchen, when they had just come, they couldn't believe that they were hired to assist me. But then I make breakfast. Why do I make breakfast? Because I want to know what I'm eating. I want to be in charge of what I'm eating. But most importantly, that is the surest way for me to make sure that I have done my 1 hour of walking every day. Because by the time I walk from my bedroom, because I've counted, I walk about 4 or 5 times. Even when I say this time I'll remember, I'll take the radio. I still carry my little radio. I'll take the radio. And then I remember I have forgotten and left the phone. And then I remember I wanted to give the assistant my shoes to clean. So by the time I've done that walking, I've already walked for like 30 minutes just walking in the house. So by the time the breakfast is ready, my 60 minutes of walk very early in the morning are done. I love my breakfast. So you can see how everything ties up. And especially for us old women, we don't want to do things aimlessly. You know, getting onto the road because you are going for a walk, but you have no destination. For us, things don't work like that. So what I do is do away with the walking first thing in the morning. And by the time I sit down to enjoy my breakfast, I'm thoroughly hungry and ready for it. I enjoy it, then go on until 4 o'clock when I have my lunch stroke dinner. That's it. Over to you, Olivia.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for sharing your hacks with us. And again, sharing how you're incorporating them into your daily lifestyle without feeling like you have to build a separate healthy bucket, but just getting your movement in first thing during the day and getting those steps in as you go about your regular everyday work. Thank you for sharing that with us. So I am going to be opening it up for attendee Q&A here in a little bit. But the point of this conversation was to get us all to pause and assess where we are now and see where there are opportunities to add these healthy habits into our daily lifestyle, no matter where we are now, so that we can set ourselves up to enjoy our future years, our later years, but also to make the impact that we want to make. This is the first of hopefully many more conversations. I'm building a community, a healthy community where you can come in and have conversations like this, and where I can offer coaching, either privately or in a group, or to companies. And so I'm hoping that this is not just a one and done kind of conversation, but that it is something that we can continue as a community. And I'll share more later on how you can join that community. But for now, I would like to open it up to Q&A. If anybody wants to ask a question, I'm scrolling through the chat to see. If you have a question, please put it in the Q&A box, and then we'll pick it from there. And while you do that, I'll scroll through the chat to see if there's any that have come into the chat. I don't know if there's, Gloria, is there the ability for people to unmute themselves and just ask their questions?
Yes, if they raise their hands, Olivia, I'll be able to see them. I see a hand from Latifa. Let me just allow her to speak.
Thank you.
Latifa, you can unmute now.
Latifa, we cannot hear your question. While we wait for Latifa, was there anybody who had a question? And one of the attendees commented, "Thank you for the session. How do you fall in love with your husband again?" The Honorable Sechok, I think you mentioned that. So there's a question from an attendee. How do you fall in love with your husband again? Honorable, I think that question was for you.
Okay.
Somebody
How
asked.
do you fall in love with your husband again? You
Yeah,
know, when you are in love first time, whatever he does is good. Whenever he says he apologizes, you forgive. So the first thing to do is forget about the past. He made his mistakes, so did you. Remember that man who, whenever he showed up, your heart went poo, poo, poo. That is one. Two, when you are looking at him and you are thinking about him, remember the good side of him. Then if you are not from my part of Uganda, where we are told men are human and they love to be loved, then I will tell you now. Men love to be loved. If you come from a background which is not used to telling people that you love them, that is the best time to tell him. Of course, he will start wondering what is happening. But if you do it today and do it tomorrow and the day after, you'll be surprised what you will get. Normally, love will be reciprocated because men are supposed to love us and we are supposed to respect them. So increase the respect. You know, there are things like I used to tell people, I can make everybody wait except my husband. And he knew it. You know, let him know that that is how special he is. He's special to you. If you are talking to children, I mean, refer them to their father and tell them, this is what he does. Because for a reason I don't know, men think whenever we talk to children, we are against them. So be on his team. So falling in love, I mean, you've been there before. Just go back there, please.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Olivia, there is a question I saw. There's a question I saw in the chat about cholesterol. And I would like to comment like this. First of all, we all have cholesterol. Secondly, it looks like in quite a number of cases, the jury is still out as to exactly what cholesterol is good, how much is it one can have, and how much shouldn't one have, and so on and so forth. For me, I'll tell you this. When I go to see the doctors, they normally check this, check the other, check the other. And for the last 20 years, they have told me how high my cholesterol is. I'm sorry to say I'm being bad-mannered. I told the doctors that eventually I will die. If my death is going to go through cholesterol, so be it. But I'm not going to take your certain medicines. I think they call them certinins. Basically because the side effects of the tablets are worse than the little challenge of having cholesterol. How do I deal with it? Everybody will tell you, eat a lot of vegetables and take a lot of fruits. I mean, coming from Eastern Uganda, where we practically live on fruits, I hope I'm surviving because of my diet, which is mostly fruits and vegetables. That is my comment on cholesterol.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And to add to that, for most of the diagnosis that we get, we definitely have to make sure that we have addressed the lifestyle aspect of it. So there are certain foods that are higher in the bad cholesterol than others, like pork and the meats and all that. So if you're working on these lifestyle pillars and eating the foods with bad cholesterol in moderation and increasing your amount of whole foods and healthy fats and fruits and veggies, like Honorable just mentioned, and exercising and working on your the way you're managing stress, taking the things that are stressing you off your plate that to the extent that you can, and building the supportive communities and taking care of these lifestyle pillars. But on top of that, listening to your body, most times you're able to manage whatever diagnosis without any extreme measures. And so if you're doing these things, yes, chances are it will lower your bad cholesterol. But even if it doesn't, before you go on any medication, you should definitely explore lifestyle, like changing your life, ensuring that your lifestyle is in harmony before going on medication. There's also studies that show that for many of us that might not have had cholesterol issues before, when we get around the perimenopause or menopause age, it is increasingly common for cholesterol numbers to go higher than they've been previously. So that's something to be aware of as well. So the short answer to the question, how does this affect your cholesterol levels? If Honorable sounds like she's already addressed the lifestyle factor, if you have not addressed the lifestyle factors, then that will be the first place to start. And if you've already addressed the lifestyle factors, then listen to your body. Her body seems to be doing okay. So those are the steps that I would go through. And hopefully that answers your question, John. There's another question here from Olivia who says, did Honorable mention that she only eats breakfast and dinner? I'm curious to know if she's still eating roasted meat and salads as prescribed by her doctor when she had fatigue. Did we lose Honorable? I'm not seeing her on anymore.
Yeah,
Oh,
I'm still here. I'm still
okay.
here. First of all, I'm definitely eating the salads. But the one thing which I have increased is the vegetables, especially the cooked vegetables, because I actually grow them. I grow pumpkin leaves, I grow pea leaves, I grow dodo, jopio, katunguma. Those are daily. And as I said, I eat breakfast and dinner. I actually, for example, this morning, I had cabbage with katunguma and dodo together with 2 boiled eggs. By the time you are done with that, after I have had my apple, sorry, I did not have apple today. I had pawpaw, had pineapple, and I had mangada. By the time I'm done with that, plus a little millet porridge, I'm good to go for the whole day. Like I said, in a number of cases, hunger is in our heads. But as I told you, for me, when I'm hungry, my hands hurt. So for as long as my hands are not hurting, I know I'm okay. Yeah. So salads, roasted meat, now and then. By the way, for those of you who are in Kampala, I like going to Digida once maybe a month. I love the pork from Digida.
Thank you. Thank you. The other question I see in here, can you speak to the importance of meditation in everyday life? Do any of you, is meditation a practice for any of you? I know for me, it is something I try to do every morning before I start my day. And again, I'll go back to the power of small, because if it's not something you do, if you're somebody that's already busy, and you're thinking of quieting your mind for even 15 minutes, that can seem excessive. So I start with just 3 minutes in the morning. And then as the day goes, I try to find smaller pockets to add that into my day. what it does for me is it's a moment to pause. It's a moment to be present and give gratitude for what I have in that moment. For example, give gratitude for my body, give gratitude for the fact that I can just wake up and go. I don't have to wind myself to get up and go. It gives me a moment to calm. It gives me a moment to visualize the kind of day that I want. And then once I step out into the day, as various demands start hitting me and trying to shift me from the kind of day I visualize, it's easier to come back to that visual that I had at the beginning of the day. It rewires, the science actually backs it up. It rewires your brain. It's like working your brain muscle. So it's definitely great for brain health, which is important as a leader. And it's a wonderful way that's always accessible in terms of managing the stressors that are bombarding us each and every single day. So it is something that I think is, if you're looking for a way to add a stress, a way to reframe your stressors, it's one of the most accessible ways to add into your day. And my recommendation, as with everything, is start small. Like, you can see results even with 3 minutes done consistently. If you're already seasoned, definitely do more of it. But I'm wondering if either Diana or Honorable Sechtoliko, if that's something you incorporate into your days.
Olivia, for me, I don't do meditation as meditation, but I have quiet time, because I have since discovered that I'm a morning person. So whenever, for example, I have to prepare a speech, I wake up, spend about 30 minutes just thinking quietly, doing absolutely nothing but thinking. Now, after like 30 minutes, when I come out of my bed to sit at my desk to write my speech, it is like I'm possessed. Within less than 30 minutes, the speech is done. Because of course, before that day, I would have done a lot of reading, research, and whatever, but putting it together. But having said that, I wanted to comment on something else. Somebody earlier on asked about when I said preparing breakfast, and the question was, should men join in the making of the breakfast? You know, I told you breakfast is in the morning. And I told you this is my like walking time, exercise time, my time. The moment you start wanting to manage the husband joining in the making of the breakfast, it becomes a chore, it becomes a job. You are just going to get angry for nothing. How do I do it? I have an assistant in the kitchen. I don't like washing up. I don't want cutting, most of the cut to onions and whatever. So my assistant, Loy, is always on hand. Loy, cut this, Loy, bring this, Loy, take the other. So even if the husband was there is very little for him to do. But now I'm talking like this because I'm talking to you women. When I talk to the young men, this is what I tell them. It is your life. If you want to start spoiling it now, you stay in bed, behave like you are disabled, wait until the food is on the table, go and eat and wait for somebody to take it away. Before you know it, it will be a requirement by your body, because it could decide that since we are not being used, we give up. So because somebody was asking, why do men die before women? And I'm like, God gives them their bodies. How they handle their body decides. You remember Diana told you, this is like a car for life. So their car for life, how are they using it? So if I were you and I wanted to do my walking in the morning, I wouldn't add fighting my husband, my spouse, to join in. I would encourage him if he comes. But if he doesn't come, I would learn to live with it. And now and then, hint, until finally he gets the point. Over to you, Olivia.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Diana, did you have something to add to that meditation?
I don't meditate,
oh.
but I pray. I'm a morning person also. I'm really up by 4. And I just spend the morning, I will get out of bed maybe at 5, like fully to wake up the kids, go to school and start my day. But between 4 and 5 is me time. And I will pray, I will read the Bible, I will read a book. But what I incorporate and what I'm very cautious of is breathing. people, we don't know that, but our breathing is controlled by the part of the brain that is base, has no, by not the logical part. So, and breathing affects your gut, breathing affects your mood. So what I do is I ask myself, are you taking deep breaths, and are you breathing from the stomach? Are you inhaling, holding, and exhaling? Breathing also controls your heartbeat. And as a leader, I must be calm, you know. When everything is going kikuku, you know, I can't also be flapping my hands and crying. So, and especially as I listen to people, because people bring a lot of things to me, I really focus on my breathing, and I'm monitoring, am I taking deep breaths? You know, and as a speaker, I also had to learn. I speak very fast. I had to learn to breathe in between my speaking. You know, pause, Diana. Start again. So the one body function that I'm very conscious of is my breathing. And I recommend, ladies, please go check out YouTube videos on why breathing is important, and how to breathe. Even sometimes we're not breathing deeply enough, but also how to use breathing in the course of just remaining calm and managing yourself. And I think when it comes to meditation, a lot of people, it's about calming the mind, stilling the mind. That's the perception I have. And I'll just share this analogy from the mountain. When I climbed Kilimanjaro, I went to climb the mountain with so many things, like every woman, a bit of this, hand lotion, sanitizer, etc. I had 2 big bags. And when I got to the foot of the mountain, the guide at the mountain told me, please, he told me, please put only what you can carry on your back. And imagine, now I started sorting. I had a clothes for each day, you know, but really, they were like, there's not going to be a fashion show on the mountains. Just put what you can carry on your back, because that's what you have to carry. So every day I wake up, I just tell myself, empty the mind of everything and only put on the mind in the calendar, walk with what you can carry today. I think sometimes as women, you're balancing so many things in the head, and as a leader, you know. So again, I'm very strong on scheduling. So one of the things I tell my team at BNI, I meet you on Monday. My team at G4G, I meet you on Monday, you know. So they know they will meet me, but they also know that any emergencies, I'm available, but the critical things are Monday. So they schedule them, and that means I'm also not trying to solve problems on the go. And I try to empty my mind by allocating tasks and saying, okay, Olivia, you're in charge of this. Are you clear? Do you know how I will help you? I think we carry too many tasks in our head instead of letting them out, and too many thoughts keep going around the tasks we haven't completed yet, just because we have failed to unload them. So carry what you can for the day is one of my mantras, and it helps me. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Carry what you can for the day. Carry what you can for the day. Ladies and gentlemen, as fascinating and as valuable as our conversation is, we are at the end of our time together. But Honorable Seshako and Diana have shared so many powerful pointers. Spiritual health is an anchor and a foundation. Small intentional habits and being surrounding ourselves with a supportive community, falling back in love with our spouses is part of nurturing our supportive community. Being rooted in our values will definitely fuel our goals. The foundations are essential, and it does not have to be a big, overwhelming task. We can incorporate them into our everyday in terms of movement, in terms of sleeping, in terms of what we're feeding our bodies. This was only scratching the surface to get us going. The continuation of this, as I mentioned before, is I hope you will join my community, where we will continue to have conversations like this. I put the link in the chat, but we'll also share that out in the emails. And before we depart, I'm wondering if either Diana, if you can share how health coaching helped you with bringing all of this together, and Honorable, if you had had health coaching, how you think that would have benefited you as we depart.
Thank you, Olivia, and I'm so blessed to know you personally. I think one thing health coaching helped me is, first of all, to understand the different types of health. I think people focus a lot on the physical. Am I fit? Am I still the same waistline that I was, 2 years ago? But understanding that there's spiritual, there's social, and emotional. And emotional caught me very much because it talked about being able to come back from setbacks. Life is going to happen, but can we come back safely from setbacks? Like a rubber band. I remember you once talked about a rubber band, and when you stretch a rubber band has a space within which it can stretch safely. And then, it needs to be able to slack again. It also can't be held to stretch indefinitely because it will snap. And also, if it's stretched beyond its limits, it will snap. So emotional health for me became very important because as a mother, you are nurturer, as a wife, you are giving, as a leader, you're giving. And people have no limits when you're a leader. They expect, and you must be able to show up. And so for me, understanding my stretch, understanding what I needed to do to slack and be able to recoup and fuel. So that helped, that knowledge that there are different types of health, taking it just away from physical, the emotional health aspect of being able to understand that, I need to be able to come back to I can't always be stretched out. And then other values, living anchored to my values, because we talk about authenticity, but what does it mean? And for me, authenticity is living true to my values and being able to demonstrate that daily. And, the small steps you talked about, I think having a coach is so powerful because a coach reminds you it's the small, consistent steps and being able to lay those out and follow them. And a simple one, for example, is what is in the food you're eating? What is in the food you're eating? Yeah, because even food affects mood, So just asking myself, what am I really putting in has become very, very meaningful to me. And it's part of my journey now, my life journey. So I think coaching for me is knowledge and then having someone to work with and to make sure these things actually remain. And I'm grateful. I'm grateful that I had the opportunity to coach with you, and I look forward to being part of your community and continuing that journey.
Thank you. Thank you. It helped you build that capacity to handle all of the things that you need to handle with joy and with resilience. So I'm glad for that. And Honorable, you had to figure out a lot of what you figured out along your health journey on your own. How do you think having a health coach would have helped on your health journey?
Of course, it would have made my life much easier, much earlier. But I want to comment on what Ben has just said, food affecting one's mood. The reason boys buy chocolate for girls, chocolate puts you in a fantastic mood. Secondly, when it comes to, we talked about sleeping. There are some foods like gonja. You want to sleep well, have gonja for dinner. So how did I learn that? I learned that recently, like 2022, when I started working with a health coach. I had learned about balanced meals, but when we were being taught about balanced meals, nobody told you that, let's say, this is the order in which to eat the food. Start with this, end with this, in the middle, eat this. No. Most of that was guesswork. So I'm really happy that I now have a health coach who helps me with simple things like the other day I ate this and the other day. I don't think the problem is what you ate, it's just how you ate it. Because, for example, if you enjoy, like you are like me and you like your beans, beans are very fussy as to when you eat them. You don't want to pass a lot of gas. You may have to find out how best to eat them so that you can reduce on the gas. So what do I want to leave with everybody? What I want to leave with you is at my age, I have learned one thing. Always mind your own business, your own body. As for the rest, because everybody will tell you first look after yourself, then you can look after others. And sometimes we hear whoever you lead will not listen to what you are saying, they will watch what you are doing. So mind your own business and let them be. Let other people's problems, challenges, and whatever not become your obsession. Let's say maybe your niece or your daughter is doing her hair in a style you don't like. It is not your problem. It is her hair. In fact, some time back, somebody commented on somebody's, one of my niece's hair. And I'm like, what hair did she have? We had all seen the girl, but for me, I didn't remember seeing the hair. Because for me, I like the girl. I don't care about the hair. I'm not in charge of her shoes or hair. So mind your own business and let them be. Good afternoon. Good evening.
Thank you. Thank you. Those are great parting shots. Mind your love, the Bible puts it as love yourself. Love yourself, and then love your neighbor the way you love yourself. You're not going to be able to love your neighbor and be out there and put out impact if you're not loving yourself. So love yourself and let them be. Give people grace. Don't stress about the small things. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you once again, Diana. Thank you, Honorable Sechtoliko. Thank you, Project Girls for Girls, for partnering on this. And thank you all for taking this time out to mind your business, to mind your health.
Thank you, Olivia.
Thank you. So we'll send out an email. Once you join my community, you'll have access to future conversations like these. You'll also have access to 30-day resets where we can walk through the habits. We can share more educational resources. We'll walk through the pillars and the habits, and it'll be a guided coaching experience. I'm losing my voice. But again, thank you for being here today, and have a wonderful rest of your weekend. Bye, everybody.
Thank you, Olivia. Bye, everyone.